So the last two posts, I talked about this idea of, if you go on too long in a narcissist situation, you try to stick it out too long, um, you could possibly snap. You could either snap or you could end up taking your own life. I certainly know what the second one was like. I felt that it's a little bit easier to know you're in that particular situation. But the idea that you might have a permanent type of breakdown or a condition that just will come out of the blue, that's something different. And I'd mentioned my aunt. My aunt, there's no history of schizophrenia in my family at all, in her family. And really, the doctors weren't sure if that's really what it was, but they made their best guess. Um, but again, and she had that for the rest of her life, just based on this one fairly poignant moment of, a narcissist attack. Now I'm going to talk about me. This was a setup for what's happened to me because, yes, I had a similar situation to this. Besides the ideation stuff, I also had what kind of looks to be a mental breakdown that I have not recovered from. After I asked for the divorce, things really got aggressive. My wife at the time did not like that idea of whatever at all, and she used her cleverness, like she's always used, to make this as difficult as possible. And in some of that process, which included losing the house and other things, I snapped. And in this particular case, I don't know how many of you are familiar with bereavement mania, but it's basically a condition where if someone is bereaved, extremely bereaved over something, it's not uncommon for this to happen in funerals, where someone's just grieving away at a funeral, and then all of a sudden they become manic. They become like, heightened level of energy. I don't know how many of you know about mania, but they exhibit mania, and it can be, for several days or just for that period, from what I understand. That's what happened to me. Things got so bad that I slipped into something like that. I was showing all the indications of that. And in fact, because my emotional system was so dysregulated, so I had a psychiatrist at the time, and the psychiatrist was thinking, well, maybe this has become bipolar, although that's unusual. That's something that would start in the early 20s. You're in your 40s. This doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But really, that level of dysregulation started then, and I've been struggling with that ever since. There's been intense times, there's been mild times, but the depression is certainly easy to recognize. But these elated moments that kind of come, maybe when I have good news or something, and the dysregulation would have that happen. I really haven't made a connection between when these cycles happen and the conditions. I know other conditions where it's been intensely negative, it's kicked in. That's I've noticed for sure. And maybe when something good happens, they'll kick in. Like right now. This account and having conversations with all you folks, this has really put me in an elated state. It's really kind of dragging me out of the mud to some residual depression I had, but I don't feel any sense of mania coming on. So I don't really know the conditions. I don't know how long this will last. I mean, if it's like my aunt's, it never ended, but at least it's treatable and seems fine. And maybe once I really heal, some of that will be back to normal. But anyway, another situation, a situation regarding me, to where I went on too long. I gave the shock, the electric shock thing. I have the ability to hang on quite a while, and that hanging on, I think, pushed me into a new era of mental challenges and issues. But anyway, I'd be curious if other folks have had these situations happen where they've kind of slipped into something that looks like some specific mental illness, like my aunt with schizophrenia, me with what would be considered bipolar. How common is that you folks have seen? And then finally, just again, another cautionary that this kind of stuff can happen if you don't manage it correctly. And, there could be permanent connotations.